Hey, everybody, I'm Tommy, and you were on the Love Boat. And I don't know if you get that tickle in your nose like you were about to sneeze. I hate that feeling, and it happened as soon as I went live. Like I was doing just fine. And then Meredith Lynn, good to see you. Happy Sunday. Hey, Linda Burton. Krista Melinda, what's happening? Susie, good to see you. Denisha, yeah, we're going to talk about Richard Gere, but not probably in the way that you think. So stick around. This could be fun. So I grew up in a period of time in this country when a lot of you did as well. Carolina, Canada, good to see you. Brock Bandy, what's happening? Lurking, getting ready for work. Sounds good to me. I remember hearing about things that newspapers didn't necessarily print, but everybody basically believed. Hello, Arwa. You just believe these things because they got repeated again and again and again. One was, of course, the Gerbil incident with Richard Gere. So I started to apply things. Renee B., good to see you. Whidbey Island Girl, glad you're here. Roberta, what's happening? I started to apply things like critical thinking, and I didn't start this until recently. I'll be really honest with you, I didn't. There are things that I can apply to that I have personal experience with. If I start talking about federal prison, I sound like I'm very logical. The Diddy stuff, I wasn't doing the kind of research that needed to be done, and neither is 90% of this planet. I'm going to prove it to you. But we have a critical thinking problem in society, and technology has exacerbated this in a way that you can't imagine. So we all heard that Richard Gere had an incident where a gerbil was inserted in him and all of this stuff. We also heard about Rod Stewart needing his stomach pumped. These things were urban legends that took off across the entire country and indeed the entire world. Jeremy Fowler, how are you? Here's the problem. Not only are they full of crap, but you say to yourself, well, there are people out there doing this. It just isn't Richard Gere that's out there doing this. It never happened. And I don't mean it never happened with Richard Gere. I mean, it's never happened. Let me explain something to you. That's animal abuse, right? And if you get caught with it, they prosecute you, period. I looked through hospital records, right? There's literally never been a hospital record of a person showing up in an emergency room with an injury from this particular action. There is not one arrest in the history of the United States of America for anything remotely like this. It seems that this never happened, ever. Not just to Richard Gere, but to anybody. But it is such a part of the society that there are people who believe that this is something that people do, because once a story starts catching fire, no one's going to disbelieve it. Now, the stomach pumping for Rod Stewart was alleged that after he had been with a lot of men, he needed to have something removed from his stomach at a hospital. He never went to a hospital. There was never any of that happened. In fact, somebody who was worked with him admitted that he started that rumor, right? But here's the deal. I found 6 other people that they have accused of the exact same thing. This has been going on since the dawn of rock and roll. They have been accusing people of the exact same thing for such a long period of time that it's incredible. I worked with a nurse in endoscopy who said he was there for the Gere situation. Well, it's funny you say that, because I rode ambulance and I heard doctors who said to me, oh yeah, no, I was in a hospital where they removed, and they tell these incredible stories. And it's like inmates, right? It's like all of the inmate stories that once the story becomes popular and they see the effect that it has on a person, they just continue to tell it. And then there are people who will say and swear on a stack of Bibles, I saw a newspaper article on this. Here's why. Let's say that you are at a shooting. You see somebody pull up with a gun and start firing. Your brain focuses in and sees that gun. It sees a muzzle flash. It sees the bullet, right? The explosion. It sees somebody fall. You smell cordite. Your brain doesn't see everything else that goes on. All it sees is that gun and that interaction. But your brain can't do that. You can't have a memory of someone standing there with nothing around them. That's not how we work. So what does our brain do? It literally fills in the blanks. It fills in the blanks. It will put a picture in your head. I have talked about this before. You be in a day room and you see 2 guys come out with knives and start stabbing each other. It's traumatic as hell. And it gets you to focus in on something in a laser fashion that you probably haven't done in the past. And then we get locked down for 2 days, and when we would come out, guys would tell you what they saw. And they'd say, yeah, he came out in his khaki shorts. And you're like, no, he was wearing sweatpants. And the next guy's like, no. When the 2 dudes came out of the shower, you're like, 2 dudes? There was only 2 dudes in the room. No, it was 2 on 1, because your brain starts to fill in the blanks of what happened. So we also do this in society. A lot of people are talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination as a conspiracy theory. And a lot of you have reached out to me and said, you got to hear what Candace Owens is saying. Candace Owens is fantastic at what she does. I'll start with that. She's a great speaker, very, very good at what she does. She's captivating, and she's very easy to listen to. In fact, she's hard not to listen to. But she said some things about this assassination that are gaining a lot of traction with a lot of people. Millions of people have seen this. And one of the things that she said about that assassination is she saw, or someone, pardon me, she said that someone saw a video of the shooter, Robinson, walking by a house, and he had a woman with him. He wasn't walking alone. So this woman said, you see her in a video afterwards, and she makes reference where she says, I wonder if the woman he was with was an accomplice. So she has come out and said, why is the FBI lying to us? If they got this tape, then why are they lying to us? Why did they not? Hello, David. Why didn't they say this? Right? That's extrapolating something that necessarily isn't a fact. So if you put critical thinking to this, if you're an FBI agent and you go out to interview the woman who said she saw a woman on the camera, what if you go out there and they say, what was the woman wearing? How was she dressed? Well, she was green. I'm fairly sure she was from Venus. I could be wrong. She could have been Martian. You're going to go, oh, okay. Or you get out there and the woman suffers from dementia. You're not going to go out and say, we interviewed someone who suffered from dementia, but we blew that off. It's not relevant. They're not going to take it to the press. That's one of 100,000 different scenarios that could have caused the exact same effect. That effect being people just don't. There's a lot of reasons for things that happen. I had the misfortune of seeing somebody shot once. In fact, more than once. But I saw somebody shot who walked home. He ran from a shooting and hit a split rail fence, right? Caught it right around the chest, fell down, got up, ran. He was wearing a leather jacket. Whole way home talking about how bad his chest hurts. He walked inside that house and fell down dead. Hey, Katie, what's wrong? He dropped dead. Found out that he had been shot in the chest. He wasn't bleeding. One of the things Candace Owens said is, you didn't see any spray come out of this man. Well, Candace, how many people have you seen shot? I'm not being disrespectful to this person, but our point of reference for seeing people shot comes from films. If your heart is still pumping and you got a leather jacket on, or you're wearing 3 layers of stuff, you're not always going to see the spray that you see when Quentin Tarantino shows you somebody getting shot. It's not going to happen like it does in the movies. And all of the people there are going to go into a form of shock, and they're going to start trying to paint in pictures. We look for patterns. It's something that human beings do. They've done studies on this. Show somebody a picture of a field of flowers that has 9 white flowers in them that are big. Show it to them for a brief period of time, a couple of seconds, and say, what did you see? It'll look like a whole field of flowers, and there was, I don't know, 10, maybe 12 white ones. Okay, what were the color of the other flowers? Forget about it. Their brain seeks out a pattern, sees that pattern, and forgets everything else. And there's another phenomenon that we have. If a guy gets shot behind a 7-Eleven and drops down dead, and the guy was known to most people to be involved in crime, maybe he sells crack, maybe he buys crack, maybe he sells heroin, that person dies, there's never a conspiracy theory around that, is there? Ever. Do you know why? Because in our mind, the crime was this big. So the person committing the crime could be this big. But as human beings, if the crime is massive, if it changes the entire world, then it can't just be some ass with a gun. No, it has to match the effect. And we start looking for things. Now, I'll tell you something. I don't believe our government about anything. But I'm not going to come out here. Somebody gave me a lot of crap and said, the people talking about this are more intelligent than you. I'm sure of it. They're also making a ton of money because they're not fact-checking the things that they say before they say them. Candace Owens came out and said, why is the FBI lying to us? You can't extrapolate from a video that you've never seen. You just heard someone talk about that the FBI is lying to us. One of her pieces of evidence, because I watched these videos because you asked me to, and one of the pieces of evidence is the family that she contacted deleted all of their social media. Put it too in the chat if you remember when hate was flying my way in a pretty big way. Okay? Be right after a video called the Long Con video. There were probably 1,000 to 2,000 people that took time to reach out and tell me what a piece of crap I was. There were a couple of 100 people that took the time to call the police and call the Department of Homeland Security, all of these things to try to destroy my life. That got seen by about 65,000 people. I'm sure it got shared so that, let's call it 200,000 people that saw it. From everybody else talking about me, 300,000 people. This family, just from one video, had 5.6 million people see it. They're estimating that there's probably more with shares and other people talking about it, closer to 100 million people that have come across this story. How much crap do you think that family got compared to what I got? Maybe they just went, I'm changing my phone number. I'm deleting everything I have. That is just as logical a thought as, well, they deleted their stuff. This is a conspiracy. But we want there to be a conspiracy. We need there to be a conspiracy because this was this big. You think James Earl Ray killed MLK or Lee Harvey Oswald killed JFK? So James Earl Ray shot Martin Luther King. That's the story that we got. Were there people involved to back it up? I don't know. I really don't. Do I think that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone? I don't know the answer to that. But what I do know is this. We've never had anybody assassinated in this country that there isn't a conspiracy theory attached to. And I find that really odd. Are you telling me that from Lincoln on up, nobody ever just whacked somebody because they wanted to whack somebody? So you start having to do these critical thinking things where you go, maybe we just can't handle the belief that some jackass climbed up on a roof and decided to shoot somebody because this changed the world, right? The number of people, they're estimating 1 billion views already, all right, about this particular incident. And that's just from 2 individuals, Charlie's wife and the guy who's sort of leading the charge, and his name escapes me. Regardless, 1 billion. There's only 8 billion people on the planet, folks. So we see this and it's bigger than life. Am I saying that this guy acted alone? I don't know that he did. But people are reaching out to me wanting me to do what I did with Diddy with this. And perhaps you're missing the fact that I failed miserably with Diddy. I didn't do any justice to that story at all. So these days I'm doing some critical thinking stuff. So when I went and watched her, she said one of her pieces of evidence is he gets shot in the neck. How is it that there's only blood on his left hand? Once again, she's blessed in that she probably hasn't watched a lot of people get shot. Even if you're handcuffed, you're going to figure out a way to get that hand to wherever you got shot because it is a reflex. People do it on the way down dying. So could he end up with transferred blood on one hand? Could his heart have been beating? They said he didn't die for an hour and a half afterwards. One of the pieces of evidence, and I almost bid on this, I started talking about it. A 30-06 will go through the engine block of a car if you're firing the right piece of ammunition. There are bullets that are designed to fracture into a gazillion pieces when they hit the body. And they're talking about this as if they know what the ballistics are. And they don't. They have not released what kind of bullet he fired. But we're all making assumptions that that bullet should have gone through the back of him easily if we don't know what he fired. We also don't know how many grains of black powder were in there, right? We don't know how that load was made, right? They can make that so that it doesn't fire at the speed that most people are used to. Once again, I so appreciate your dedication to facts and research. Well, thank you. This is new. I wish it was something that I had been doing since I started this gig, right? For real. I wish I had spent way more time because I'm getting really freaked out by the misinformation. I'm not sure whether or not you've heard, but I saw a video this morning that Joe Walsh was killed. Before you bum out, Joe Walsh has not died. But I found no less than 10 thumbnails of stories that Joe Walsh died 3 days ago. He is most assuredly alive. I could put up a video tomorrow and say anything I want about anybody. I don't have to say allegedly. I do it because I believe strongly in not saying something I can't prove, right? But now I'm not going to say something I heard from somebody else if I can't at least chase down some kind of source. She's going on, Candace Owens, and saying, this video exists. Okay, let's talk about evidence. Critical thinking style, not sensationalized, let's make this fun. Critical thinking, real stuff. Okay, if that video exists, it's called metadata. We need to know on what we need a timestamp on when it was recorded, and we need chain of custody. What happened to that evidence? This is a gun. Bang, I shoot somebody with it. This gun now has to go into a bag, and they have to be able to say to me where that bag went everywhere along the way. Who touched it? Who handled it? Because they could take that metadata and they could play with it. They could put another person in there. They could remove another person from there. There are things about the shooting that don't smell right to me at all, right? And I'll tell you that. But these are opinions, and I'll tell you the opinions. The text interaction between the shooter and his girlfriend, the man transitioning to a woman, his girlfriend that he lived with. That isn't, hey, Kevin Hawthorne, Lakeland, Florida, Jamie. That's not how they talk. I have kids that are that age. And when they text me, they don't write in full sentences, right? There are a ton of abbreviations. There are a ton of emojis. He said things like, I need to retrieve this, and my vehicle is this place. The language doesn't make sense. And I told you guys, I don't like using AI for research, but this to me seemed like an AI model might be able to research. So I asked not one, not two, not three, not four, 5 different AI models to compare this text exchange to text exchange that they get kids from the same age, and tell me if it looks like this was made by kids or made by people older. The most watered down version that I got from AI said, no, this does not sound like people in their 20s. Doesn't sound like that generation in any way. We're shocked that there aren't emojis. We're shocked that there aren't some of the things that kids do almost ubiquitously across the board. They all do it. Why is it not there? Well, who knows? It would be really easy to go, there it is. This is it. Proof. Here's your smoking gun. And I could probably come on and do that, right? I can get righteously indignant like the next guy, maybe better than the next guy. But it's just as logical that this guy is in shock. He just shot somebody. Now, I don't know which one's true. I know that that text exchange doesn't make sense to me. One of the first things she says to him is, how long have you been planning this? If you call me and say, hey, I just murdered somebody, and it's the person that you saw on television, this big, huge disaster that just happened was me, my first question isn't going to be, how long were you planning this? In that same conversation, he says, he being the shooter, says to his girlfriend with a penis, and I'm saying that because it isn't a girlfriend, right? It's somebody that's that identifies as a woman who's dating him. And it's worth saying because I don't want to misquote. My language is my language. He's with a dude pretending to be a woman. And he says to her, I'll give her that credit. He says to her, remember when I was engraving those bullets? Put a 2 in the chat. If you walk into your living room and your significant other is engraving things on bullets, are you just going to go, hey, hon, and walk out of the room? If I walk in and you're engraving things on a bullet, I'm going to go, what the hell are you doing? Why are there bullets in my living room? And why are you etching things into them? This is not normal behavior. But he says in the text exchange, hey, you remember when I was, yeah, I remember. Well, that's what I was doing it for. Baloney. I'm sorry. That doesn't pass the smell test. It also doesn't prove anything. I could come out now and I could say, this proves that there's a conspiracy theory. I'll tell you something else that's interesting. In their little server, which was on a video game server, Discord, but they go in there and there was an exchange where someone says, hey, man, Charlie Kirk just got shot. Below it, it says dead. And he said, man, this is messed up. You know, dude didn't deserve to die that way. There's nobody, there's no responses, there's no nothing. Then the shooter comes in and says, hey, that was me. That doesn't pass the smell test. And Candace Owens brought this up. A lot of people are bringing this up. Why the hell didn't this cause a feeding frenzy among all of those people? Now, their logical conclusion is this. They were all in on it. So that's what's going on. Here's another theory that could be just as solid. Discord heard the next comment that was, I'm so glad that dude's dead and I'm glad that his kids don't have a father. And they could have deleted it. I don't know what their protocol is, but they sure as hell could have deleted that. Or they were so salacious and their evidence at this point. So the feds have seized that and they're in the process of an investigation. It is a bad idea to tell the world what is going on in your investigation. But none of these things get brought into account. Everybody is ready to make the leap of this death is too big for one guy who's really angry about his trans girlfriend, right? And his furry parties or whatever the hell else they were doing. And he's going to kill somebody for it. We can't accept that. Our brain doesn't want that to be the case. It's too big. It's too big for that. Got to be other people involved. It's probably the Jews, right? It's probably the Mossad. I don't trust the Mossad. I don't trust the Jewish government. I don't trust any of that. But that doesn't mean that the next logical leap is they did it. Do you know why? One of the big pieces of evidence that they're giving, because in the Israeli Defense League, they teach people to either shoot the neck or the head. All right. I spent a lot of time as a criminal. If I'm going to go break a crime and there's a signature that is mine, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to leave behind something that's going to go, yep, it was the Jews. More likely, you got a guy out there that's holding a gun, getting ready to fire it at somebody, right? We cannot accept what is real anymore. We can't, because we don't know what is real anymore. Joe Walsh is dead. I was heartbroken. I sat down. I love Joe Walsh. I've seen him in concert a half a dozen times, as just with Joe Walsh. Saw him with the Eagles twice. I was really, really stressed out about this. But I thought to myself, what makes me believe he's dead? Just because somebody made a video about it? No, he's not dead. The guy got a lot of views. But you don't need to tell the truth. I should know that from my experiences in my life. People can say whatever they want about me. They do every day. Right? Every day. They can say whatever they want. And people go, well, if it wasn't true, they'd sue him. Give that a try. Let me know how that works out. This is what you decided to do. This is what you decided. You can still go ahead and sue them, but you want to research and find out if they own anything. People go, why didn't Jaguar Wright get sued? I'm not being disrespectful. What are they going to get out of her? Right? You're gonna drop $25,000 to $100,000 to sue someone who can't pay you? What, to make a point? Yeah, if you're Taylor Swift, you can do that. Sue a guy and then get paid $1. Well, if you got $400 million in the bank, that's logical, but most of us don't. But we take leaps, biblical leaps, with this much information. This is a conspiracy theory. This is a lie, right? We know this one's a lie. These things don't pass the smell test at all. Like when I said there aren't tunnels underneath, you know how much crap I caught in the Diddy community for saying, I don't believe there are tunnels under the guy's house? How do you know? Oh, let's start with this. Star Island is an island. It's also a man-made island. I live on a peninsula. It's not an island, but it's damn close. If I go out right now and I dig down a half a foot, I'm going to run into water in a way you won't believe. Doesn't mean you can't make a tunnel, but you're going to need some serious engineers, like Army Corps of Engineers. You're going to need a lot of work to sink a tunnel into an island underfooting, especially a man-made island. Also, he bought the house like 3 years before all of this stuff went bad. When did he do this? So you know what I did? A little critical thinking. I started pulling plans and pulling things that he did to make changes to that house. And there was nothing that they did to dig or any of those things. There were some permits pulled to do some, to blow down some walls, to do some other stuff. It's ridiculous, right? And now you want to go out to the place in California? Absolutely, there's a tunnel under that house. You can actually look it up. The tunnel was built to go from one house to another, allegedly, by the former owner of Playboy. Hugh Hefner did it. To get to a house for a woman he bought a house for that he was no longer with. There were two other houses that also had those tunnels. They don't go into the city. They stop in one spot. And it's not even a particularly long tunnel. But boy, oh boy, once you get running, once that catches fire, the next person, it's not good enough that there's a tunnel. You know what's going on in those tunnels? Huh? They're sacrificing kids in those tunnels. That's what they're doing. There's a Starbucks down there. There are so many people. I'm not making this up. This is what they said. There are so many people moving through there. They need a coffee shop. Put a 2 in the chat if you believe people could be working at a coffee shop in a tunnel where kids are being smuggled by and we didn't hear about it. Huh? I'll tell you something. I look back for conspiracy theories that can be proven. And there are some that can. MK Ultra happened, right? That happened. We can talk about that till the end of time. COINTELPRO. When the FBI decided to go after the Black Panthers, to go after Martin Luther King, all that, that's real. Do you know how we found out about that? Somebody broke into the FBI office in Pennsylvania and stole the files. That's a leak. And a logical person might be a lot better at. I don't trust our government as far as I can throw a Chevy, but I can't. And if you can't prove it, you should probably not say it. Right? And that's the problem, is that critical thinking is gone. I'm not mad at Candace Owens. She's making a fortune. But to say the guy got shot in the neck, it must be the Jews. He could have also been aiming for the head and had Charlie do this one. He could have been aiming at the chest when Charlie did this. You got a target that's moving. He's talking to people. He's doing this number, right? All it takes is that. Ask Donald Trump. Think that guy was aiming for his ear? It doesn't take much. Your heart's doing this number. You got a gun up there. Never shot at anyone before. Heart's beating. Is he a marksman? He's done a little hunting, but he's not a massive, he's not a huge gun enthusiast. That was a gift that his grandfather gave him. That gun's about 100 and some odd years old too. It's not normally what one would think of I mean, the caliber's right, but that's a super old gun. Do you truly trust any government completely? I don't. No, I don't. But somebody left a comment earlier about Diddy, and they said, nothing you could say could convince me that the judge wasn't paid off. Let me say that one more time. Nothing that you could say could convince me. Well, then I got nothing to say, right? You made your mind up before you looked at any facts, and you had the guts to write it out. I'm not mad at you. I'm not picking on you. But this is where we're at. And I was that guy. There's no way you could convince me that what they're saying about Diddy is a lie. You can't convince me. That was me. So you remember when we came out and they said there's 135 cases being filed by one lawyer? How many of those cases do you think are already gone? It's difficult to find out an exact number, but they estimate somewhere between 40 and 48 of those cases are still moving forward, which means that the courts or the people involved the courts have thrown some out and said this is BS. That's already happened. And there have also been cases where the people didn't want to, and they weren't Jane Doe. I glommed onto every one of those stories like they were. Why? Because Diddy's a scumbag. Ipso, right? Gotta be. Well, that isn't exactly how it goes. It isn't. And if you're someone that says nothing you could show me could convince me otherwise, so what you're saying is I could show up with a fact. I could show up and say, Judge, and there has been no contact with anybody reaching out to him. He's on film going in and out of his building. No, we know that this guy squeezed. That's how he got the gig. I think that judge was. I think if you were going to that judge, he'd be 4-year sentence, right? 4 years, 2 months, or whatever sentence. A gig in Florida. By the way, that's set up. That man had a gig ready to go. So if he paid off the judge, maybe he should give him more money. Yeah, he could have got 20 years. Subromanian, as much as he wants everyone in America to be happy with that sentence, he also knows it's going up on appeal. The people that said to me, you can't appeal a sentence, read the newspapers today. They're already appealing the sentence. Sentences can be appealed. You can't appeal the decision in a lot of cases, but depending on how you got there, especially if you plea, you're done. But that's not, we're getting BS'd. And I'll tell you what, if you take critical thinking to the next level, you might start scaring yourself. For instance, been talking about this a lot. We're catering to the smallest part of the society and doing what is good for them at the cost of the largest part of the society. By that, I mean, they estimate that maybe 1% of the population identifies as the opposite gender. So 99% of the country has to change how they talk, right? We got to start calling breast chesticles. We got to start saying front hole instead of vagina. All of these things to cater to those people. How about some critical thinking? How about if you said, if people wanted to start to really destabilize this country, you could do it by making the normal people look like lunatics. If you just keep pissing them off enough until they all start screaming and getting angry, well, maybe we end up with a civil war on our hands. And we can blame it on the right-wingers who are all pissed off that they're just not nice to all of these people that deserve that kind of freedom and nice. Maybe this is just a way to destabilize the country, because it makes a hell of a lot of sense. If I'd gone back 25 years and said the government is going to tell you that it's okay if kids as young as 9 or 10 want to remove their genitalia, you would have laughed at me. You would have said, that's ridiculous. If I said people are going to be identifying as My Little Pony, not just male, female, non-biological female, non-biological male, cisgender, one of them is My Little Pony. People are going to say, my pronouns are ze, them, te, they. You'd go, bullshit, right? There's no way, but it's happening. And if you don't accept it, you're a homophobe, a racist, pick your insult. Keep insulting those people, telling them they're wrong for not accepting that a man can't give birth, and they start yelling. And now you got people yelling at each other. And what do? We send in the military, right? That's what's happening in Portland. We had to send troops in there. We've also sent them into Illinois, arrived there today. They're going to Memphis, Tennessee. Not in my lifetime have I ever been at a place where troops were in more than one city in the United States. They might go in during a riot and try to clean stuff up. The Black Lives Matter, they were going in, but this isn't the same thing. They're not going in on a night of terror. They're going to clean the place up. Now, whether that's right or wrong, critical thinking is still an important thing. So I'm not trying to watch videos of people that tell me why Portland sucks. And I'm not trying to watch videos from the people in Portland that says this is a paradise. I look for feeds, people just driving up and down the streets. And as I said on a previous video, there are signs in the window that says, please don't break my window. I'm not against you. That doesn't sound like the citizens of that city feel safe. I watched a poor woman drive into the protest and they terrorized her. She didn't do a damn thing wrong. She took a wrong turn. They terrorized her. Banged on the car. She was weeping inside her car. Yeah, I mean, legitimately, maybe send some troops out. But how does it look? Now you give people in the rest of the country who don't know what's going on in Portland and don't suffer from critical thinking. They just go, man, all these people that are doing is peaceably protesting in front of a building and they're going to send in the military to take them out. What happened to free speech? Free speech means this, with all due respect to the rocket scientists who keep sending me emails. You can say anything you want in this country and not get arrested for it. That's free speech. You can sure as shit get fired for it. You can lose your friends. You can have family never talk to you again. I could walk out into the United States of America and start using the N-word with a hard R in every sentence I do at the top of my lungs for the rest of my life. That's legal. They're never going to put me in prison for it, right? I'm never going to get a job. There's a good chance someone's going to punch me in the face. I'm never going to get a girlfriend. My family isn't going to talk to me. I'll be friendless, but I can do it. They didn't take away my free speech because I can't have a job. Free speech means you say it. They don't like it. They put you in prison. That's what free speech means. So you can say anything you want, but don't start crying because you get fired. And we have actors and academics making videos going, death to free speech. They don't believe that. They know what the First Amendment says. It's the most disingenuous crap I've ever heard. It's called ideological superversion. The KGB, the USSR specialized in it during the Cold War and beyond. It's also called newspeak. They get us to say whatever they want. And you know what? When you give up a little more of who you are and a little bit more rights, this is what we've been doing since 9/11. Planes flew into the Trade Center, and we're willing to give up an awful lot of our civil rights if it meant they could keep us safe. Well, what happens when your cities start burning? Well, we're willing to let you put troops in there if it means safety. Well, that's more civil rights, isn't it? We'll just keep giving them up. Listen to us, watch us, film us, do whatever you got to do because it's so damn dangerous right now that we'll give up anything if it means that I'm not going to have people breaking the windows of my house. I saw a video where a guy was just down the middle as you could be. He said to the people who were protesting, he very kindly introduced what the other side is thinking. They ran him off. To the other people, he introduced the other direction, but he talked to someone who said in an interview, I'm married. He said, and my wife is in a wheelchair. He said, but I don't just worry about her. I worry about the houses 4 down. And those women won't leave their house to shop or do anything else unless they call me and I can go with them. It's not a peaceful protest. It's terrified American citizens, right? It's terrified American citizens. And that's an uncomfortable thing. Nobody wants to see the military on the ground, but I'd rather see the military on the ground than see people terrorized. That's an opinion, right? That's my opinion. I can't tell you that the FBI is lying to you about Charlie Kirk. I can tell you I don't trust the FBI. I don't. I've had plenty of personal experience with the feds, and they do not tell. I've told the story so many times. I got hung by my hands like this and got the crap kicked out of me for hours. To them, because they can make it go away. So I know that they made it go away. I'll make some more friends. What are the odds that every single person who weighs in on climate agrees with each other? All the data all agrees. That's not scientific. In fact, I asked AI to start running some simulations on if you had that many people doing all of these models, how they could all line up. And AI went, in fact, it's free. It doesn't happen. They want us to believe certain things because we give up more of our freedom simply by believing it. You understand? Incandescent light bulbs got to go. They're destroying the planet. When I was in 6th grade, they told us we were in a deep freeze, and it was because of aerosol cans. When I hit high school, they told us we were going to die in a nuclear holocaust. I would go to first period class every morning, which was homeroom, and the teacher would walk in and say, good morning, everybody. The nuclear clock is at 10 minutes to midnight. I spent 4 years absolutely terrified that I was going to get nuked. My senior year, the project that we were supposed to write out for our senior paper was, the Russians have launched, you have 20 minutes left. What are you going to do? honest to God, I don't blame my addictions on anything but me, right? I don't. But that didn't help, man. I promise you, that didn't help in the slightest, you know? Rights aren't rights. If someone can take them away, that's their privileges. George Carlin. Where's my old friend Reese? She would have got a kick out of that. She's a huge George Carlin fan. But yeah, I'm a Carlin fan. I really am. Words don't hurt people, right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. No, your words will hurt you. Because there's a group of people in this country that believe it's okay to silence people because of their speech, right? And that's not cool. It isn't. But more than likely, what we're looking at are people that have been radicalized by certain beliefs. Why do we need an entire conspiracy to believe that that happened? We see it every day, right? We see it every day. We watch people that live in echo chambers. People have reached out to me since this Diddy thing and said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. He can't appeal his sentence, and he's going to be out in 2 years. I'll bet you my left arm he ain't getting out in 2 years. I know how the system works. This isn't me being objective or anything else. I did a crap load of time in the feds. His lawyer said at the sentencing, yeah, he used a bunch of people's PAC numbers. That is rampant throughout the BOP, and they do nothing about it. Wow. You make a phone call and you go, hey, listen, by the time you're into your fifth word, they're coming up to you and going, you, come here. Come here. You're going to lose your phone privileges. The guy that lent you his PAC, he's going to lose his phone privileges. You lose good time for that. But the people who are just reading that transcript goes, they're picking on Diddy. Nobody even gets in trouble for this. Critical thinking, chasing down that what somebody says might be BS. I love Candace Owens. I really do. I think she's a fantastic, I can't say journalist. I think she's fantastic at doing podcasts. I enjoy watching her. I don't, however, believe that she applies critical thinking to any of this. How is it that it's more likely that somebody deleted all of their social media platform because they're part of a larger conspiracy? Larger conspiracy, deleting their entire footprint looks really suspicious. Is it not more likely that they're being terrorized? Right? Terrorized. Shit, I got terrorized. What do you think 100 million are doing? They're terrorizing these people. So they're trying to disappear. And all of these people that are saying, 4 years is nothing. With all due respect, please go do 4 years with people who hate you and let me know what 4 years feels like. Because I did that for nobody, and it was 4 years. My first sentence was 4 years. It felt like an eternity. It's horrific. And I know we want the guy to go away forever. I wholeheartedly believe he's going to go away for more time because there are other crimes out there. But I'm not going to come on here and tell you things that I can't chase down ever again. And I'm going to start calling out all of the people that are telling you things that they can't prove. I watched 4 videos today where people told me what kind of bullet Robinson fired. It's never been released. I promise you, there's nowhere, anywhere where they said, here's what the ballistics are. Why? Because it's a cover up. No, because we do ballistic testing with the United States. They take a really long time doing it. A really, really long time doing it. Jane Aldridge says, I agree, Candace, excellent presenter, research and decision is weak. I think, and this is an opinion, right? But I don't think that her research is the issue, and I don't think that her decision-making process is the issue. This is a moneymaker. Got any idea what 5 million views pays, right? And she's doing this on every video. But if she were to come out and go, yeah, no, this is just a guy that acted alone. That doesn't sell. This video isn't going to get traction. If I make a video that says Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, I'm not getting views on that. We don't want to hear that. We don't. We need this to make sense. And it can't be that the life of somebody like that and the mission and all the good, all that gets rubbed out because of one loser that got radicalized by a bunch of people that don't believe what the rest of the country might be believing. That's just too hard for us to put in our head. The bigger the tragedy, the bigger the conspiracy, right? We need to believe. Kennedy got killed. It can't be that simple. Here's a nice one. Put it in the chat if you've ever heard them compare the assassination of John F. Kennedy with the assassination of Lincoln. Because there are people all over the internet Yeah, that's okay. I'll give you that, but respect her less. I don't think it's an accident. I think she makes a lot of money doing it. This woman studied journalism, right? If you study journalism, there are certain things that they actually teach journalists. You know what one of them is? If they know which side of the aisle you're on, then you're not doing your job right. Now, those days are over. Every journalist, we know what they think. Think Sean Hannity, and he'll say, I'm not a journalist, I'm a commentator. Are there any journalists left? Who are the journalists? Because they've all got an opinion, right? Every last one of them have an opinion. We have gone away from actually reporting news. Now we tell you what to think. Hold on one second here. I think I missed something. Shouldn't be the first time. I have found anywhere where I have a hard line opinion like that. That's exactly where I have to look and take in some information. Jamie K, I respect the crap out of that. Many people in the prison might know more about P. Diddy than he knows about himself. Absolutely. And sadly for him, what they know about him, they read in magazines and newspapers that never printed a retraction. And if they did, it was on the last page. Because in the middle of this case, I would have told you that there are 25 or 30 lawsuits pending where he molested kids under the age of 14 to 13. The youngest, I believe, was 8. But did any of those hold water? The CIA didn't exist during Lincoln's time, thank God. No, but you know what they'll tell you? Lincoln had a secretary named Kennedy. Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. One was born, one entered the Senate in 1856. I'm making that number up, but this is for example. And Kennedy entered it in 1956. He got elected in 1960. Lincoln got elected in 1860. John Wilkes Booth has the same number of letters in his name as Lee Harvey Oswald. They all had 3 names. All these things get drawn out. What the hell does any of this mean? Do we think that somehow there's a conspiracy between the two of them? Like they figured out, okay, so this guy got killed. We need to take out. This is talking about with us looking for patterns. So now we got Charlie Kirk dead and the entire world is looking for patterns. Remember this guy? He's doing this. Look at him from the side. He's on the phone. He's FaceTiming. He's talking to somebody. But everybody was sure as hell. That was the moment. He was telling them right when to shoot him. Because the shooter, he needs to know exactly when the perfect time is to shoot. Is that the dumbest thing you ever heard? Does that pass the smell test? You got a guy on the roof that's going to shoot somebody, but not until I give you the go. It's the dumbest crap I ever heard. I'm sorry, it is. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, by the way. But it doesn't make any sense to me. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I have to sneeze, people. I have to sneeze. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. I had a little sneeze action going on there. There was a whole skit between Lincoln and JFK on YouTube comparing the death. Yeah, but it's humans looking for patterns. It's humans looking for patterns, right? And then things happen that make us doubt society more. Put a 2 in the chat if you've ever met a flat earther. Put a 2 in the chat if you've ever met anybody that believes the earth is flat. I'm interested by this. I got on an airplane with a guy, sat down next to me, and he said, "What do you do for work?" Normally I say I sell crack because it gets me a lot less hate than if I tell him I'm a YouTuber. But I said I'm a content creator. And he goes, "Oh, I've done an awful lot. Where do you create content?" I said, "On YouTube." He said, "What kind of content?" I said, "Some true crime stuff. I talk about mostly about drugs. I'm a recovering heroin addict." I said, "What kind of content do you do?" He said, "Stuff on flat earthers." And I went, "So are you agreeing with flat earthers or disagreeing with them?" He said, "No, the earth is flat." Hello, Heather. He said, "No, the earth is flat." And I said, "Do you honestly believe that?" And he said, "Yeah." I go, "How do you explain things like flight paths, which don't make a fart bit of sense on a flat planet, but make a ton of sense if you're going in the air? How do you explain a sextant?" And he said, "I don't know what a sextant is." Well, I lived on a boat, right? I sailed. A sextant can't work on a flat planet. And I navigated with one. It can't work on a flat planet. It's that simple. In order to believe that conspiracy, you have to believe that everybody at NASA is in on it. Every pilot is in on it. And not just in the United States, but in every country. But there are tens of thousands of people that believe we're being lied to and we're actually on a flat planet because we quite simply could not handle if we were to find out that it's round. This is literally hard to wrap my dome around. And I said to the guy when I'm on the plane, I said, how do you explain solar eclipses? The moon passes in front of the earth, right? And or the other way around. So we pass between the sun and the moon. And he said, well, a quarter would cast the same thing. I said, yeah, but you figure at least once it might put a stripe across it. Are you telling me it's always like perfectly, the quarter is always facing that? It makes no sense, right? It makes no sense. But it doesn't stop people from all day long believing in this. Some of them recently went all the way out to Antarctica because they said there is no place on Earth that it's sunny 24 hours a day. If that were the case, then we would have a round planet, right? Because that happens on a round planet. So somebody paid to bring a bunch of these flat earthers out there. And while they were there and filming, they went, turns out we were wrong. By the time they got back home, there was a new theory for how they got cheated, how these people faked this. Critical thinking needs to come back, because if it doesn't, then you're going to fall for anything. Somebody said to me, I don't know that I can understand the concept of the whole critical thinking thing. It's about not getting conned. It's about not getting hustled. It's about not believing. It doesn't mean you got to be a dick and a jerk and try to, but critical thinking. If somebody says something that just doesn't make sense, then take 15 minutes to go do some research. In this day and age, it's not that hard. And if you go, well, AI, then don't do AI. You can do AI and say, all right, I want to see source. Don't tell me something. Get me the sources. I want to read the articles. The idea is that AI should be your paralegal. They should go chase down all the books that you have to take a look at, right? And then you take a look at those books or those articles. That's the concept. Instead, people say, I Googled it. Oh, okay. Algorithms, sadly, are designed to create misinformation, because the more extreme and the more rowdy and the more, why would we be the only flat planet? So odd. Well, Don Bucavista, you're right. Why would we? But as much as these things seem almost laughable, I'm bringing it up because it's an extreme example of how people want so badly to distrust the government that you can sell them that we live on a flat planet and that there's an ice wall around this whole SOB to keep the water in. Huh? Are you kidding? Like, this is real. Like, did you never play with a sundial? I think the moon landing is fake. Why we have not been back to retrieve what was left up there. Mike Bragg. There's a lot of people that believe that the moon landing is fake. The problem are telescopes that are easy as hell from Earth to look at the garbage we left up there. You can see they're there. That happened. Now, is all the footage from there real? I don't know. We were trying to show up the Russians. Did we hire somebody to film it because it would be better? Probably. I mean, that could have happened, but it doesn't mean we didn't go to the moon. And critical thinking, when you apply it to everything, you can say, I don't believe the narrative. I think I'm being lied to, right? But that doesn't mean that you take it to the next leap and go, never happened. There are so many other reasons that could have been faked. Let's start with this. In the shade, you're looking at the kind of cold that doesn't exist anywhere on planet Earth times 100. And in the sun, the kind of heat that doesn't exist anywhere on planet Earth times 100. You're going to take a Hasselblad camera out there and start going to work. You're wearing a spacesuit. You're holding a camera like this and taking pictures. Not one is out of focus. Not one's out of frame. I'll give you all of the reasons that it seems like this doesn't make sense. And if you look at how many pictures were taken, they had to be popping off one about every 10 or 20 seconds for the whole time they were there. So, but that doesn't prove we didn't go to the moon, right? That therein lies the real problem. And this is where we run into trouble. Hold on one second. Hey, I love you, bud. I got to call you as soon as I'm done with this show. I'm actually live. Sorry, family. Don't make the leap of biblical faith that if one of these things is wrong, the government lied about everything, the earth is flat, right? We want to believe. The government has lied to us. We know they have. They've lied to us a bunch. We know it. MK Ultra existed. People came out and said, that's a myth. And then we had the Freedom of Information Act, and people can actually look this stuff up. It's disturbing to think that the government knew that Pearl Harbor was coming and let all of those soldiers die. But it happened. COINTELPRO, to think that we were going to go after American citizens with the FBI and target them, it happened. The Barack Obama administration went after American citizens by using the IRS. It happened. Fast and Furious happened. All of these things are real. So we start thinking everything they tell us is a lie. Everything. Then somebody shoots somebody that half the country cares about and the other half do not care about or hate. It can't just be that some 20-year-old kid climbed up on a roof. That's not good enough. It's too big a tragedy for that small of a reason or that small of the actual process of killing him. It's got to be bigger than that. Got to be the Jews and maybe the Iranians have to do with this. When those planes flew into the Twin Towers, people said those buildings were brought down by dynamite. I was having a conversation with one of my best friends about this. If you've never been in the financial district of New York City, then what happened at the Twin Towers may be something that you would speculate on that, because the New York Stock Exchange closes at what? 4 o'clock. Then people are going to go home or whatever. That building was trading 25,000 different markets. That building never closed. It didn't even close on Christmas Day. You think people were in there running dynamite with det cord to every single post in that building, all of the structural supports? Have you ever seen one of those buildings wired up to go down? Well, then how could it have happened, Tommy? Well, if you take something called anhydrous diesel fuel, right? Critical thinking. You take something called anhydrous diesel fuel and you compress it and put it in something airtight, and then it explodes. There's no water in it. That's what anhydrous means. This is not the diesel fuel you put in your car. If you don't have it, hey, I was just talking about you earlier, Quibs. Someone made a Carlin reference. But if this stuff is under pressure and you let air at it, it'll start smoking like dry ice. Anhydrous tends to have this kind of an effect. Well, that's what the wings on an airplane are filled with, right? You got 60, 80,000 gallons of that stuff, and it goes off. It's about the same deployed, the same boom as a small tactical nuke. So it begins to melt the steel on the level that it took out and on the one above it. And then the gas that goes down and starts to leak starts to melt the ones below it because this stuff's burning hotter than you can imagine. You ever watch a guy break boards and he goes like, yeah, right? Well, he only has to break the top one because that break goes and it starts to take it all the way down. So if you got the top and you had this many floors above, it starts to crush. I don't doubt any of that. I doubt that the passports of every single person in that plane survived that explosion. That's bullshit. It's got to be, right? And we lose our ability to believe because if I did this to my ex-girlfriend, if you lie about little things, then they're going to assume you lie about everything. And the government lies about a lot of stuff. It's just more convenient sometimes, right? This guy etched the bullets. So did Mangione. Well, he at least wrote on them. And then the shooter that shot up the Catholic Church and killed the kids, he wrote on the bullets. So this is just a new thing? Or is it just really easy if you get there and the guy just killed himself or got shot and there's a clip laying out and it's one of those open ones where you can see 6 bullets in a row? Just take out that Sharpie and write ICE fascist on the side of the bullet. I'm not saying that happened, but I'm not saying it didn't. And the people that are running with it who say he's a left-wing wacko, maybe. I mean, the guy did have a website where he had a picture, with the USSR hat on and all that. Maybe he's a wacko. But is he a wacko because somebody on the YouTube or somebody on one of the network news channels told you he's a left-wing wacko? Because if that's all you got, then maybe you need to take a little bit more time before you start screaming about it. I have no problem whatsoever by saying the guy that shot, saying, right? Be a woman. Girlfriend had a penis. That's not MAGA. Right? It's not. You can extrapolate from that. He also, admission, said he hated this guy. So these aren't leaps, but some of them shot up the ICE facility, never got to get interviewed. There was nothing that came out of that. So what do we got to go on? Well, we got bullets that he wrote on. That's convenient. But I'm also a cynic at heart. If I showed up on the roof and I wanted to put this on somebody, it would be super easy to just write on the bullets. You want to take it a step further in terms of cynicism? What if this is all by design? What if they want us tearing each other's heads off? What if they want us yelling that these people are freaks because of their blue hair and their lifestyle? And they want those freaks yelling back at us and getting crazy, because if we begin to fight each other, you know what we need? We need dad to come in and fix it. And in this case, dad is the federal government. And every single time things start getting bad, we welcome a little bit more intervention from the government. It gets a little bigger. Our freedoms shrink a little bit. If you want to be a cynic, how perfect a plan is this to destabilize the country? We didn't hate each other like this 25 years ago. Why do we do it now? Well, because you can't take 1% of a population and make 99% bow down to it. When that happens, Hitler rises. Right? Hitler rises and blames everything that's going wrong in the country on the Jews. Or someone else says everything that's going wrong in this country is the fault of these left-wing trans lunatics. The truth is probably somewhere, right? Too much. Maybe I'm not doing enough critical thinking. You're never going to convince me that I'm going to change my vocabulary or beliefs to say that a man can give. Can't. If you send me an email and say, well, no. And stop saying I even mean. Who really have that gender. We'll call them breeders and bleeders and feeders. That's really, you want to be a part of that gender, but you want somebody that got it naturally. If that's never going to fly with me. My mom and I paid homage to the Twin Towers that December. It was like every metal surface was scrubbed with sandpaper. Yeah, you know, I was in New York less than 2 weeks after the Twin Towers came down. And I had friends in that building. I was working in a line of work where we spent a lot of time talking to people that traded stock, and I knew people in that building that died. We went to pay our in front of that of molten steel that was still hot. It looked like there was enough of an how the passports arrived. Right? They should build the black box and the airplane out of passport paper, right? Because the black box didn't survive, but the passports did. That explosion just blew all those passports out so we could easily find them. I don't buy that. I don't buy that. But I can't then say, and this means that everything else is this. It doesn't mean that I can now take it to the next level. And sadly, people like Candace Owens are doing this. And they do it with authority. Right? She has stuff that makes it sound very much like she can back this up. She said, I've talked to these people. Have you seen the video? If they had this video, why didn't they show it to you? If they showed it to you, is there a timestamp on it? Because he could have walked by that 3 days earlier. If all you saw was a clip of film, how would you know? Right? How could you possibly know? Let me just make sure this isn't family. All right. I just want people to do some critical thinking. I'm going to. And I'm going to call out people that don't. I'm worried. I'm worried that we're getting played. I'm worried of really disliking they want me to dislike. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't. I don't necessarily give a crap what your lifestyle is. You want to pretend that you're a woman? I'll even call you miss. I don't care. I'm not calling you ZZM. You're not going to change my vocabulary because you're a weirdo. It's not going to happen. Right? Simply not going to happen. Your rights stop at my door. And I might slap someone in the head that wants to force me into that. Because words mean an awful lot to me. You get it? I don't think that makes me hateful. But I'm not going to ramp up the rhetoric on it. I'm not going to scream and go nuts because I feel like they want me to. And I'm not going to blame the Jewish people because right now, anti-Semitism is nastier than it's been since World War II. And we said, since 1945, this could never happen again. This could never happen again. Did you see the number of people who marched to free Palestine? Palestine sent their people. Palestinians sent people in there flying underneath canopies to go murder people and take hostages in the name of peace? If you're stupid enough to believe that that's in the name of peace, we can't be friends. Well, what's going on with them isn't right. So if you treat me really badly, can I come over and kill your kid? Well, sorry, you crapped all over me. Do you know how many people crapped on me in the last 6 months? Can I start whacking their children and taking them hostage? Do I have those rights? Critical thinking goes along. I don't care how you choose to live as long as it doesn't involve minors and me, and you can live how you want. Chef, I agree with you 100%. Here's where this starts to become an issue. Because when they force their opinions on you, right? If a person wants to live in as a woman, even though they were born a man, and they want to go to your elementary school while dressed in a thong and read to your kids, you're a hater if you tell them that that's not cool. Now, what about the kids? Because this is a pervasive thought that goes through this entire thing, right? Minor attracted people. You can't crap on somebody for being a pedophile. That's a bad name and it's a stigma attached to it. We call them minor attracted people. No, we don't. I don't. Condones. It says you're a victim. You want to have sex with kids and you're a victim. Yeah, this isn't your fault. This is how you were born. Okay, well, once we go down that road, you say, how does that even start? How does that start? It starts by people in Congress saying you should be able to kill a kid up to 6 days after he's born if you want to abort it. Well, if we've got that much respect for babies that can't defend themselves, what the hell kind of respect would we have for a 5 or 6 year old? And if you don't see that, then apply a little critical thinking to it. If you go, well, a woman has a right, of course, yeah, absolutely. But let's define what is a kid. Well, those are just cells. Okay, so cells don't get any kind of rights. At some point, you have to say, here's where they get the rights that every other person on planet Earth, liberty and happiness. At what point? Job. In fact, there was a bill. Take it home. Check it out. Never got on the floor to be voted on, but somebody wrote this bill. I wonder why they're molested. I wonder why child pornography is on the rise more than it has ever been in history. Maybe because we don't respect children anymore or give a crap about them. We let people go in dressed as strippers to read to them. I don't want a woman, right? Born a woman. I don't want her going in there and reading to my kids dressed as a stripper. I'll go down there and slap her around. Why would anyone let somebody like that into a building? The day will come where they can make those decisions. But to say, not only do you have to do this, but if you're uncomfortable by this, you're wrong. That's really what we want to teach our kids, isn't it? Huh? Hey, if something makes you uncomfortable, go with that. Anything that makes you uncomfortable, say, no, I'm not doing this. That's what we used to teach kids. Now we teach them, hey, if this makes you uncomfortable, it's because you're a hater. Critical thinking, just might turn this ship around. But unfortunately, these bad boys here, they don't provide critical thinking. They go the exact opposite. They do everything within their power to make sure there is no critical thinking. Echo chambers. And if you think this is an echo chamber, then you haven't caught enough of my shows. Because I'm telling you right now, the people that are right wings and screaming about exactly what happened to Charlie Kirk, they ain't got a clue. But they're pissed at the people at Turning Point USA for not jumping on board. How dare you not care about Charlie? Maybe they just believe that this dude did this. Does that make them Nazis or fascists? Man. That's why I love peppers. It's peaceful. Have you tried a tube of terror? There's nothing peaceful about a tube of terror. Have you ever accidentally got that? Anyway, get that on the wrong body part and tell me it's peaceful. All right, people. If I keep going, I might elevate this to a level that I don't want to. Because in all honesty, I'm really trying to change my game, not my beliefs. But I'm not bringing stuff out here. And I can't tell you the number you want. I could say right now, I got a friend, he's got a video of that shooter, and he's with 5 people, right? They're all foreigners. Where's the video? It's not good enough to say somebody told me. That's not fact. But she comes out and says, why is the FBI lying to us? You're extrapolating a lot out of that. I don't know. I'm sorry to all the people that really wanted me to run with this thing like I did the Diddy thing. I don't see it yet. Doesn't mean I don't believe there's a conspiracy. There might be. There's some stuff I struggle with about that whole incident, right? There is. But they haven't released a ballistics report at all. So no one knows what kind of bullet they're using. So when they tell you that the bullet would have gone straight through them and straight out the other side, you just don't know that until we know what they were firing, right? We need to see all of this stuff come out. Because if not, you're getting played. You're getting played by who's ever best at this. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the dude best at this, right? Because I think I got pretty good at it during Diddy, but I wasn't doing any favors to anybody. In fact, that shit show circus that we did is probably why you got 4 years. Because the whole world expected so much more because we heard that he was sacrificing babies and drugging people and doing all of this. I mean, was he doing some of that? Probably. There's definitely some cases. We know he beat Cassie. That's a damn fact. I could talk about that till the end of time. There are other people that have accused him of things that I find super credible. That's something that, what's her name says a lot, Candace Owens. Well, I find this person really credible. Well, that's not a fact. It's not. And I'm not saying don't believe people, but you can say, I believe you. I just can't report this, right? You got to give me something. I got to find something. Because I told stories of people that I was convinced this thing happened. And they said it happened in September of 2023, except he was in a different country for 3 months. Maybe they just got the date wrong. Maybe. But you gotta be able to back these things up if you're going to be a content creator. So if you want me to be an extremist and agree with the things that people are saying, it's not going to happen because I know how bad it felt the last time. So I'm not going to do it again. Now, that said, men can't have babies. That is a biological fact. You're not getting me to change my vocabulary because people want to pretend that they're the opposite, gender. That's not going to happen. That's pretty simple stuff to me. And you know what's crazy? Almost all of America believes it. It's for real. If they do, they're afraid that if they say something, they're going to be called this or that, or their windows will get broken, or someone will burn a cross on their lawn, or any of the other stuff, because we are hated for being normal, born regular. Well, Tommy, just saying born regular or normal is racist. Bullshit. Miss me with that. I will see you all in the next one. A kinder and gentler version of myself by then, I am sure. Between now and then, do me a favor. Put a little love in your heart. And yeah, you know what? Nancy Grace broke down, God help us. Nancy Grace broke down his time and how he'll serve it. Probably be a 1.5 years. If Diddy gets out in 1.5 years, you call me and I'll buy you a car. Ain't any way in hell he's doing 1.5 years. Math doesn't add up. There's no way in hell. So what she's doing in that, I promise you, is she's saying he gets 1 year off for RDAP. He gets 6 months off for halfway house. All of his good time. He's not going to get RDAP. All of those things are a fallacy that lawyers read to you out of a book. No one gets it. I did a lot of time in the feds. Diddy will do closer to 3 years, but he sure as hell ain't going to do 1.5 years. I promise you. All right, people. We'll see you on the next one. I'm Tommy. Have a great night. Bye-bye.